This story is dedicated to the caretakers of the world and for those who need a little extra help to make it through the day. Homecoming, written by Van Heerling, read by Brittany Goodwin. A deep breath escaped her lungs as she returned to the dining hall. He was still there, alone and undisturbed. "Okay, I'm ready," she said as she began to sit down. The man was curious and looked about the restaurant as if he did not know where he was or who this young lady was before him. "Oh," she said as she caught herself before she committed to the seat. "My apologies. Do you mind if I join you?"
"If you want to join an old man for soup, you're more than welcome. Can't imagine why you'd want to sit with me,"
he said as his hand gestured for her to join him. "Thank you," the young woman said as she began to sit down again.
"Just a moment," the man said with a pointed finger. "I don't know whose jacket that is."
A black coat with ornate abalone shells for buttons hung off the back of the chair. The young woman placed her hand on its collar and felt the fabric. She smiled as her fingers ran down it. "It's a lovely coat," she said. "I'll just move it in case the owner comes back." He watched as she removed the coat and then draped it around the back of the adjacent chair. She stood again in front of him as he ate soup. Her hands flopped to her sides and slapped her thighs unintentionally. He looked up again. "May I sit now?"
Yes, he said, "but there are many empty chairs around us."
She nodded as she looked around the restaurant. To her right sat a middle-aged couple, and to her left a young pregnant couple. But he was right. There were many other seats available. "I suppose I don't want to be alone." "Not tonight," she said as she took her seat. He didn't say anything as he continued to spoon his soup. "Lobster bisque? How is it?" she asked. "Oh, nothing," she said as her eyes surveyed the restaurant while her hands rubbed her sleeves. It was a meager attempt to alleviate a sudden chill. She smirked. His mouth opened slightly as concern fell over his face.
"Dear, you must be freezing. Where is your coat? That thin blouse won't do."
She rubbed her arms again and then placed her hands on her lap. "I'm fine. I checked my coat. I'll be fine, really." He looked around himself.
"I'd give you mine, but I don't have one either."
"Please don't worry yourself about me. It's enough that you've invited me to join you. Or I should say I invited myself. Thank you."
"It doesn't bother me any. What is your name?"
Her lips parted, but then pressed shut as a plate hovered in front of her. It was held by a strong hand and then floated down to the table.
"Pan-seared salmon with a vegetable medley for the lady, and for the gentleman, roasted cod with scallions and sliced potatoes. If anything else is needed, please do let me know."
The waiter was off in a swoosh of black and white before either could have said a word, but words were not needed. They ate mostly in silence. An occasional scrape of a knife and clink of a fork opened the floor to a conversation, but both sat in silence. Several times the man glanced at the woman in front of him without recognition. One of these furtive gestures elicited a smile in his direction. In turn, he lowered his head and took another bite. He still did not know what to make of her or why she had decided to sit with him. With her final bite, she rested her fork on the plate and wiped her mouth with her napkin. A glass of wine had appeared several minutes ago and had been sipped half a dozen times. The man vaguely recalled it being poured. The leather-bound booklet harboring the check appeared at the edge of the table. A nod from the waiter acknowledged that his patrons were satisfied with the service, and he excused himself. Delicate fingers reached for the booklet, and as they made contact, the man's hand, quick with anger and aged from years of labor and strife, held her wrist fast. His touch, callous and hard, softened as the heat of her skin flowed into his like sunshine being absorbed on a warm summer day. Their eyes met again as she placed her other hand on top of his. It was as if he saw her for the first time. His taut face relaxed, his eyes drooped as if to cry. "Jenny?" he asked. "Hi, Daddy," she said as she nodded. Her eyes welled to the brim.
"Jenny," he said, I've missed you."
"Me too, Daddy." She thought of all the things she wanted to say. She thought of all the things she had said many times before. But this time her mind was quiet. This time she felt acceptance. She let go of his hand, wiped a tear, and reached for her coat on the chair beside her. "Yes, yes," her father said, as he recognized his mistake. "It's time to go," she said as she signed for the evening and closed the booklet. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Home, Daddy." "To Mother?" "Yes, to Mother." She didn't have the heart to spoil such a delightful evening. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please consider sharing it with a close friend. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss the next story. You may also join us at www.thedrippingpen.com.